So, some of you may know that I've been involved in the film industry and television industry for a long time, since I was a kid. Donald Trump did something very interesting today. He levied, because right now it's just a threat at this point, 100% tariff on films and the runaway production that has been destroying the American film and television industrial complex. This is huge.
So a lot of people here in Los Angeles make their living in the movie business, and new tariff threats from President Trump is the latest push to bring those jobs back here to the States.
Rachel Aragon live in Hollywood with what this could mean for local crews and local productions. Rachel.
Yeah, this major announcement this morning could certainly shake up Hollywood and leaving many people wondering not just about how this could impact workers, but also those films that are currently in production. One of the other major impacts could be right behind me, major film studios like Paramount Pictures, as well as other big ones we know, like Netflix and Comcast.
A lot of those studios right now would be bustling with work and people moving here and fro. I remember going to Los Angeles in 2004 and just realizing how these well-oiled machines had been going since the early 1900s and that they were a staple in the industry. That is no more. They look like ghost towns now.
Taking direct aim at the Hollywood film industry. In a post this morning, President Donald Trump posting this on his Truth Social platform, saying our movie-making business has been stolen by other countries. He goes on to say, quote, California with its weak and incompetent governor has been particularly hard hit. Therefore, he says, in order to solve this long-time, never-ending problem, I will be imposing a 100% tariff on any and all movies that are made outside of the U.S.
100% tariff. That means any film incentive that you got, like the big example that comes to mind for me is Marvel. Marvel set up shop in Atlanta probably 15 or more years ago, and they shot over 24 projects, major movies that you have watched and enjoyed or hated, there's no saying. They brought so much to the state of Georgia, and all the in-kind services, the tax incentive they were receiving. But I predicted when they said that tax incentive was coming in Georgia, and it was competitive, it was bigger than any other tax incentive anywhere else. I said, Hollywood does not have any loyalty to Georgia. That once they feel the need to leave, they're going to leave you high and dry. Someone referred to it as they felt like a jilted lover. You know, like they felt like a discarded lover, like they came and just soaked up all the resources. And sure, they were giving out, they were supporting the businesses around, you know, because when the film industry comes and you have these big $100 million plus projects come to town, the whole economy is impacted. And that's where Georgia was smart by actually doing that. Georgia came into a place where they were going to put the most competitive film incentive up when nobody was doing film incentives like that. Now, if you look up everybody and, you know, different states in the country, it's become more competitive. They all have a film incentive, and that is to attract productions there. Well, Marvel, if you don't know, has left Georgia, and they were using, I think, Tarriff Studios, and now they've gone to the UK. But they've gone to the UK for several reasons. And people might want to stand on a soapbox and be like, well, you know, they're getting better things there. It's purely financial. Like, you remember I told you Georgia had one of the best film incentives? Georgia's tax incentive still beats what the UK is offering at 25%. But there are other things that come into play. And this is where if the UK was smart and not thirsty about things, they would actually see that they're being taken advantage of. It says here, rising labor costs in Georgia tipped the scale. So things became more expensive as more professionals entered the market, right? The supply and demand, right? But they're still in the United States, right? They left Hollywood and they came to Georgia, of all places. But it was working. But what it says here, in the UK, crews are paid less and studios aren't saddled with health insurance expenses, making it cheaper to shoot overseas. This is what somebody told the Wall Street Journal, right? Why does that matter? Because that isn't in itself Disney and Marvel looking out for the creatives, the people that make these films go for them. That's them caring about their bottom line only. That's them willing to take all this work and all this infrastructure that's been set up in Georgia, you know, the studios that were built in Georgia and the sound stages, all the florists, the catering companies that were flourishing off of having this new Hollywood business here, and Georgia rolling out the red carpet for them, mind you. They actually were starting to do things to actually support them. And Marvel said, fuck you. I'm going to the UK. They got a better deal. Now, this is business, right? You can say, oh, this is business. This happens every day. But what if you're an American company? What if your company and your audience base is based in the United States? Now, we've had conversations for years about how much of these big budget films box office comes from outside of the country. You have big markets like China and the rest of Asia. You have developing nations like the promise of Africa maybe becoming more of a theater-going audience. But for some reason, abandoning American production has now become so attractive that these people feel like they can do it without America. Not so fast. And I'm kind of glad this happened now. This isn't really a political discussion because when it really comes down to it, we're still talking about movies and make-believe and creativity and how many people's careers and dreams and hopes of being in the industry are now being impacted by a company's financial decision. Because as they run away, and mind you, Georgia had its own issue with the child unaliving bill that Hollywood was not too fond of, but there was still production. It says here, Georgia's film and TV spending has plunged nearly 50% in 3 years, with just 245 projects filmed in the fiscal year ending in 2025, down from 412 in 2022. That's cutting things in half. And the personal toll that's going on here, the families that will be torn apart by this, seem to always get left out of the equation. And just when Los Angeles was trying to get its own act together by offering its own film incentive after all these years of runaway production, it's a race to the bottom. Now, you know, this is an interesting place to be.
Governor Newsom's office firing back early this morning on a social media post saying, quote, the governor tried to explain this to Trump months ago when this was initially proposed that his actions will cause irreparable damage to the U.S. film industry. This move is 100% stupid.
But is that a risk they're willing to take, Gavin Newsom? This is Gavin Newsom talking about the response to Donald Trump's proposal for 100% tariff. I would say California's politicians in the past haven't thought about really protecting the film industry in the way that's being proposed. But something's got to be done, no?
The announcement is raising uncertainty for studios as well that depend heavily on international box office revenues and that also film internationally. Right now, it's still unclear, though, by the way, how...
And wasn't that always the lie? When they wanted to discriminate against you in Hollywood, they would say, oh, well, black films don't perform overseas, so therefore we shouldn't make black films. Remember that? Yeah. There is an international market of countries in Asia and everywhere else trying to imitate black culture. But maybe they didn't get that memo.
How exactly this tariff would be enforced, but we're monitoring this morning again to see how this will be enforced, but also who exactly will impact. And I have no doubt that many of these major studios here in Hollywood...
Look at that gate behind her. There's like one cart going by and I don't see anything else happening over there. No cars going in, just emptiness. That's crazy. You would have seen somebody walking by now.
Hollywood this morning. Rachel Aragon, I'll send it back to you.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy, but something has to be done. There's people's lives at stake here, livelihoods at stake here. These weren't just low-budget jobs. She says, this is the lady that said she felt like a jilted lover. Janine Goslin, 62, a script supervisor who once made $200,000 a year working Marvel sets, told the Journal she hasn't had steady work since February 2024 and has borrowed from her retirement fund to cover her bills. The downturn has film workers so demoralized they've turned to the state's famous jingle into a joke. Trilla Studios, Marvel's longtime 1,000-acre production hub near Atlanta with 34 stages. 34 stages is crazy. And its own housing village has gone quiet after years of nonstop demand. We were fighting over stages on a daily basis because there just wasn't enough room for Marvel and whatever other shows we're trying to film there. Location scout Lindsay Seeley. Location scout's work is going to be impacted substantially if that's the case, if majority of the work left the state. Who worked on 4 Marvel projects, told the Journal. Now she said, the lot is largely empty. Seeley remembered February's Captain America Brave New World shoot when rumors spread it might be Georgia's swan song. Her fears came true weeks later when the studio held an auction to sell props it had accumulated during its decade in the state. Wow. So they just, that's crazy. They just sold stuff off. It's like, here, take some memorabilia. That's when it really hit home. Wow. For local crews, Marvel wasn't just another client. It was the cornerstone. That's right, Doctor Strange was shot there. The studio's high-budget blockbusters, and obviously they've got Tyler Perry still, but Tyler Perry even changed his plans for making $1 billion studio in Georgia after he heard about AI coming. So now you got 2 impending threats. You got people runaway production outside of the country because they've been shooting in Budapest and Hungary and all. They've been shooting all over the place for years. But like Tyler Perry was like, I don't want to make $1 billion investment right now and not have anybody use it because, believe it or not, though you might see Tyler Perry's films as a certain type of film, Marvel was written from Tyler Perry. They actually shot Black Panther or portions of Black Panther on Tyler Perry's lot. So take that. So think about that. That is going to impact even the hometown hero who, you know, is self-made in some ways. The studio's high-budget blockbusters employed hundreds at a time and kept workers busy year-round. I bet they probably couldn't stop working. Man, I hope some of these people saved their money. Marvel allowed me to do so much with my life and really set the trajectory for my career, said Grip John Grubb, 44, who worked 6 Marvel films. See, but some of these people who have families and set up roots and shop in this area, like Los Angeles or in Georgia or New Mexico or Detroit, New Orleans, they can't just get up and go to the UK now. You know, maybe they could, but it's just crazy, man. He worked on 6 Marvel films. He even calls his $350,000 home the house Avengers built. The collapse comes after a meteoric rise that began in 2008 when Georgia expanded its film tax credit to 30% uncapped, making it one of the most generous in the world. The policy turned Atlanta into the so-called Hollywood of the South. Franchises ran in Lionsgate's Hunger Games, Universal's Fast and Furious, Netflix's Stranger Things, and AMC's Walking Dead. At its peak, the industry supported nearly 20,000 jobs. Wow. But the economics have changed across the U.S. 29% fewer big budget movies and shows began filming in 2024, which might be a decent thing as compared to 2022. Because I'm going to tell you, a lot of these big budget movies, like they were starting to get predictable. They were starting to get very formulaic. And I think that's because of the impact of the big business. You know, the creatives are impacted and they're not able to really flourish and make what they really want to make because they feel like they have to make something for the system, you know. In the UK, that number jumped 16%. Other countries like Canada and Australia continue to lure projects. States including California, New York, New Jersey, and Texas are pumping up their own incentives to compete. Lee Thomas, director of Georgia Film Office, said rising labor costs drove Marvel and others out. We hope that this anomaly where they'll try out other markets and will return to Georgia because they have faith in our crew and facilities and our tried and true incentive, she told the Journal. Tarriff CEO Frank Patterson, that's the whole studio that they were using that they said now is a ghost town, is betting the slump will end, predicting a new normal in 2027. Well, he's hopeful. In the meantime, his company is investing in startups that make content exclusively on the studio stages. Better call them up over at Tarriff and see what's up. You know what I'm saying? Fawcett Media. This might be the rise of the Fawcett Media era. I got some ideas, y'all. I really do got some ideas. But anyway, what do y'all think about that, man? Our president wants to put tariffs on films produced outside the United States to 100%. That's serious business. That's a negotiating piece. Because if you have all this runaway production to other countries, I think they got to come back to the table or else remain unprofitable. As if some of these places were profitable, you know, with the high budget filmmaking that they do, $100 million plus budget filmmaking that they do. I think it's going to get interesting. And not to mention, you know, as an actor, I've seen it for years going on with the UK's actors being imported here, you know. Wouldn't it be nice to have some type of requirement to use a certain amount of American actors? I don't know, you know. Because I love UK actors, don't get me wrong. They're great. But in everything, really? Like, I know so many great American actors that can do those jobs, but are not given the opportunity for whatever reason. So would that be another triggering point to the 100% tariff? If you've got all these stars come flooding in from Australia and the UK, does that now become a foreign production? It remains to be seen. But anyway, let me know what you think about it in the comments. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification for all uploads. This is Fawcett Media.